Let's talk about business. As we begin our special themed coverage of President William Ruto's scheduled State of the Nation address on Thursday, tonight on the economic front, we focus on the country's debt stock. The Kenya Kwanza administration campaigned that ascended to power as it promised that it would have low tolerance to borrowing. However, since assuming power, there have been more losses than wins in the country's debt management. NTV's Brian George now with a breakdown on the state of the country's debt stock.
As of late November 2024, Kenya's total nominal public debt was approximately 10.9 trillion shillings, which included domestic debt of about 5.4 trillion shillings and foreign debt of roughly 5.5 trillion shillings. First, compared to this year, as of the week ending 14th November 2025, Kenya's debt stock was approximately 12.06 trillion shillings, consisting roughly of 6.6 trillion shillings in domestic debt and 5.46 trillion shillings in external debt. Domestic debt is primarily made up of treasury bonds and bills, while external debt is comprised of multilateral debt, bilateral and commercial loans. Evidently, Kenya's debt stock has been on a rise despite an early retirement of the 2014 Eurobond that was over $2 billion in both principal and accrued interests.
Kenya faced a crossroads of extremely difficult choices, where defaulting on our obligations would have significantly worsened an already perilous situation, and more borrowing was not an option. It was therefore essential for us to drastically reduce expenditure, mobilize as much as possible resources domestically, and curtail waste.
However, economic experts hold that the country's debt sustainability and debt carrying capacity is unsustainable given the country's fiscal framework.
Remember, we're supposed to be at 55% debt to GDP ratio. We are well in the 60s, and even the medium-term forecasts project we are still going to be in the 60s, the low to mid 60% debt to GDP. So it's still a significant worry because if we crowd out the private sector and the government fails to get enough tax revenue, even being able to make those redemptions with a low tax base might be very complicated.
Another key concern is the government crowding out the private sector in domestic debt market to mop up funds for national budgetary needs. This is symbolized by the rise in domestic debt stock, despite government stating it's exiting the scene to ease up funds for the private sector.
Earlier this year, the country opted for debt for food swap after a successful negotiation with the United Nations, a rarely taken path to manage sovereign debt. Eyes now on President William Ruto ahead of Thursday's State of the Nation address, and the country would be keen to understand just what other strategies are there to manage the country's national debt. Brian George, NTV, Nairobi.